Peter Thiel recently did an interview where he was spot on with what he said. He goes in to say it doesn't matter what you think the tech is, it matters what the tech does. Right? Everybody's using all of these different terms for if you ramp up the intelligence, if you increase the power, if you do this, you're able to get more out of AI. And on top of that, Thiel is saying that we're headed towards stagnation, and that it's not a good thing that AI is the only thing we got going. All we have right now in the world is AI and conflict. On the other hand, it's not great. Okay, we have one thing that's progressive, one thing that is recessionary. So I'm definitely on board with him in those two areas. One of the points he touches on with the fact that it doesn't matter what you think the tech does, it matters what it does, is how we're extremely IQ hungry, and it's a very big Silicon Valley thing, but I would extend it to a lot of areas where people think if you gather a lot of high IQ individuals and just throw them in a room, they're going to come out with something great. But what often happens is they come out with inventions or technology that are not marketable, that are not able to be commercialized. They read the market, and they're too optimistic about industrialization. They're too optimistic about supply chain. They're not taking into account human error. They're not taking into account conflict around the world and how that affects micro and macroeconomic situations. There's a whole lot going on. The smartest guys in the world, the smartest men and women in the world, what they do is they rely too heavily on internally or too heavily externally, meaning that they expect this future tech that they want to employ to get here very soon. They say, oh, well, with AI and with this and that, that means that our expectations of this coming here in the next 10 years means that it should be here in 5 years, actually. We're going to get it in 5 years. And so they work accordingly, and they're like, all right, we want to make sure that we have this technology caught up so that when this R&D comes to fruition, we're ready to go. But they often are too optimistic in those timelines. On the other end of the spectrum, they internalize everything too much, and they believe that they have to build the entire thing, and so they reinvent the wheel. And I don't even have to get into why that's a bad idea. It's a waste of resources. There's no business acumen there. You're not going to get to marketability. You're going to have enormous margins, and you're just not being smart. A lot of stuff in business comes with when people ask you how you're going to do that. It should be a lot of handshakes. We're going to have partnerships over here. We're going to outsource hiring in this way over here. We're contingent on this. Where's the bottleneck? This key partnership. It has to happen. It doesn't have to be that one company, but it has to be a company that's in an industry that's similar, that can do the same things that we need out of this partnership. So I definitely agree with high IQ is not all it takes. It takes a bunch of high emotional intelligence, EQ. That leads into our next point of stagnation. So it's a huge worry that AI is all that we have going on. And Peter Thiel brought this up, and he's been a leading thought pioneer in this regard of the fear of stagnation. We shouldn't be fearing Armageddon. We should fear stagnation more so, and I agree. Because right now, everybody feels AI is capable of much more than it is right now. AI is weak. We got computers to respond to us. That's all we got with GPT-3. And ever since then, nothing's really changed. Computers are capable of responding to our input in a more intimate way. It's no different logistically from us clicking a button and having the computer respond to our input. Okay, it just seems a little more intimate. And it is, sure. Being able to conversate back and forth is great, but it's still just as sophisticated as it was before. It's very complex under the hood. Sure, the engine is complex, but we still have this human barrier with machines. AI is woefully below its potential. It's not even close to reaching its potential, even on current hardware. One of the reasons that we're going to have stagnation is why we're leading towards that is because AI is becoming quite the bubble. Everybody's making all of these exit strategy companies. They just build a product so that a huge company like an Amazon or an Apple or a Microsoft or an OpenAI can buy it and swallow it up, only to find out that the only thing worthy of it was maybe some of the talent, but the product itself was a waste. The dot-com bubble has turned into the .ai bubble, and it's extremely clear to see. And that further pushes towards stagnation. We have a bunch of people working for the money and not working for the advancement of the technology. It's a lot of what can the tech do right now and how can I leverage that to get what I want out of it. And agents is a fine move. But AI isn't at a point where the agents can be especially effective, at least not with high quality. Okay, and that's where we can get into our point with Julia Turk. So Julia pointed out an interesting thing about Llama. To put it more simply, there's a new approach, a new methodology for inference in Llama that somebody posted, and a lot of people are having trouble testing it out and working with it because there is no documentation, and the inventor, the writer, the creator of this new methodology decided, I don't want to write documentation. I do this just because I like building open source tech, and that's fine and all. But I just don't want to waste my time doing documentation. I just did this because I wanted to build something. And so Julia Turk goes through the trouble of doing her very best to document and create a repository online where people can learn about this method, this approach to AI training and inference. And that's great. Admirable effort. She was guessing at some of the acronyms, and I feel like she probably, very good educated guesses, she probably got them right. It's extremely, open source work is extremely unprofessional. I've read plenty of documentation on open source. One example is the RISC-V documentation, even the 2024 most up-to-date one. I read through it. There's terminology that is contradictory. There's terminology that it's spelled different in different places. You have hyphens in some areas. You have capital letters in other areas. And this is an assembly language documentation. So any differentiation between two terms makes me feel like there's a differentiation in their definitions. But it's not. There's just slight errors here and there. Some things aren't explained as thoroughly as they should be. A lot of things in there are very unnecessary to say. It makes it extremely difficult to learn. So while we were writing our custom architecture for our Cogent computer system, I read through line by line. I'm making sure that everything makes sense. I'm making sure anywhere that we say the same exact thing multiple times, we're grouping in the beginning of a chapter, the beginning of a subchapter, or in an appendix or something like that. And everything felt like a good amount of work and felt quite obvious that I should change. But then I came across one section where one letter out of a word wasn't bolded, and the rest of the word was bolded to show that it was a program mnemonic. And when I saw that, I pointed out to my engineer and I said, do you see this? Do you see how I found this highlight? I found this word that wasn't bolded, and I'm going to highlight it and make sure to bold it. That's the difference between professional work and unprofessional work. That's the difference between the work produced by a professional company and open source work. I go through this and I find out when there's accidentally an extra space in between two words. I find that. We find all of this stuff through our quality assurance. And that is what makes a topic professional. That's what makes a product professional. These are advanced topics. These are tricky things to learn. And we are doing you a disservice by putting together this documentation and making it so that there are any distractions during the indulgence of that material. It has to be so clean. We have to pay deep attention to detail and make sure that all of the T's are crossed and all of the I's are dotted. Nothing can be out of order. If you're making anything out of order, you may as well not write any of it at all. That is why AI is not helping us right now. That is one main reason. You use anything like auto-generated CapCut, you use auto-generated anything from AI, say goodbye to your quality. Go ahead, do quality assurance on it. You're going to do so much review, you may as well have done it yourself. That's why AI is not where it needs to be. That's why we're headed towards stagnation, and why we have to fight against it with every fiber in our body with innovation. We have to innovate. We're not there. There's no singularity. It's not all singing Kumbaya with our hands in a circle. There's conflict around the globe. There is vast waste of resources on inefficient computer systems. There is a lot that we can fix, and there is a lot that we can make better. Stop stagnating and start contributing.